I stood just inside the doorway, shoes still wet from the rain, and watched my son pack up my life. Darren was crouched by the coffee table, folding my sweaters into a cardboard box like they were old receipts. He didn't look up. "We need space," he said, sealing the box with one long drag of tape. I could hear Mallory upstairs, thud, shuffle, tear, packing more things that didn't belong to her. "Her parents are moving in next weekend." I set my umbrella against the wall and took a step forward. "And where exactly should I go?" Darren straightened up, but still didn't face me. "Didn't you say Aunt Colleen's got a guest room?" I didn't answer. My eyes landed on the return label still stuck to the side of the box. My name, my address. I picked it up, heavy, but not full. Half my closet was still untouched, probably because Mallory didn't know which of my scarves were dry clean only. "I figured we'd handle it now," Darren added, like we were discussing groceries, not my eviction. I walked past him without a word into my bedroom. My closet door was half open. On the dresser, the photo of me and Darren from his graduation had been turned face down. I sat on the edge of the bed, fingers pressed to my temples. The room was still mine for now, but the air had already changed. The corners felt foreign, like I was the guest and someone else was expected any minute. I stood, crossed to the filing cabinet, and unlocked the bottom drawer. The folder was still there, red tab, title written in my late husband's hand. House, all legal. I pulled it free and set it on the nightstand. Then I walked back into the hall. Darren was on the phone, laughing at something Mallory said from upstairs. I passed behind him silently, picked up my coat, and left for the diner down the street. Not to cry, just to think. By the time I finished my tea at the diner, I'd run the numbers twice in my head. Mortgage paid off in 2013. Property taxes on autopay straight from my account. Utilities, insurance, repairs, all mine. The house had been in my name since 1992. My husband and I signed the deed together. After he passed, I refinanced, and my name became the only one on the papers. No co-signer, no tenants, no obligations. Darren and Mallory moved in 6 months ago. "Just for a while," Darren had said. He needed time to recover after the business folded. I offered the guest room, not the house. I gave them space, not the deed. But slowly, they started treating every inch like theirs. By the time I returned home that afternoon, my favorite armchair was missing from the living room, the one with the worn armrest where I used to read after dinner. In its place, a new beige love seat I'd never seen before. Still had a price tag. I went down the hall to check my office. The door stuck. It never did that before. I pushed it open and found cardboard boxes stacked floor to ceiling. Holiday decorations, canned food, suitcases I hadn't touched in years. My desk was buried, my filing cabinet unplugged. Mallory passed behind me holding a box of candles. "Let us know when you're packed," she said, like she was offering a favor. I didn't respond. I walked calmly to my bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the bed. I pulled out the red file folder, the one I'd placed there last night. Inside, original deed, title, insurance, property tax history, copies of every check with my signature. No shared accounts, no rental agreement, no reason to explain myself to anyone. I pressed my phone screen. My attorney answered on the second ring. "I need to terminate a verbal cohabitation arrangement," I said. He replied, "Do you have documentation of sole ownership?" I flipped the first page. Every last one. By the time we hung up, I'd set the termination for 30 days. Sunday morning, I slipped out early for groceries, though I didn't need a thing. When I returned, there was nowhere to park. Darren's car was crooked in the driveway, and Mallory's parents had taken the curb in a spotless black SUV. Folding chairs crowded the porch. Someone had put up a vinyl banner that said, "Welcome home" in gold script. Mallory was standing on the porch with a champagne flute, her voice cutting through the spring air. "To new beginnings," she said. Her mother clapped. Her father raised a glass. Darren just smiled and nodded like he'd built the place himself. I didn't go up the steps. I stayed across the street, half hidden behind a neighbor's tree. From there, I could see my front door propped open with one of my gardening boots. The welcome mat had been flipped over. They were eating store-bought muffins on the patio furniture I'd bought 5 years ago from a local craftsman in Vermont. I took out my phone. Mallory had just posted a photo, all of them on the porch, arms raised, glasses mid-toast. Caption, "So grateful for this fresh chapter. Couldn't ask for better family support. This house already feels like home." I screenshotted it, then I turned and walked 2 blocks to the public library. It was quiet, cool. I logged into the county clerk's portal. Under Property Management, I found the option, File 30-day Notice of Termination, Owner-Occupied Property. I uploaded a copy of my deed, the utility bills, and the signed legal affidavit from my attorney. A green checkmark appeared, Notice submitted, valid through end of month. That evening, I was in my room reading when Darren knocked. "Hey," he said, leaning awkwardly in the doorway. "You okay?" I folded the page of my book. "I'm fine." He smiled, like that was all he needed, and closed the door behind him. They still thought I was just being quiet. Let them. Mallory started with the hallway. By Tuesday morning, the old framed prints I'd picked up on a road trip through Maine were gone. In their place, glossy white paint and 3 metal sconces that matched nothing else in the house. She dragged the hallway table into the garage and brought in some geometric piece she'd ordered online. I heard her humming while she did it. I let her. In the afternoons, I visited Colleen. Her little craftsman across town smelled like lemon soap and dryer sheets. I sat at her kitchen table, sipped tea, and filled out paperwork while she baked muffins from scratch. Actual ones, not the kind you buy in bulk and pretend are homemade. No confrontation, just space. My lawyer called to confirm that the notice was processed, reviewed, and logged with the appropriate department. Unless they can produce a counterclaim of tenancy or shared ownership, he said, they're required to vacate by the 30th. I thanked him and hung up. Then I opened my laptop and updated my mailing address with the bank, the DMV, my pension office, and my doctor's clinic. It only took an hour. Back at the house, Mallory kept working like she owned it. She swapped the shower curtain in the main bathroom for something pale green and transparent. I heard her say something to Darren about getting better light for photos. They took one that night, her parents sitting on the new love seat with Darren crouched beside them. I watched the image load on my feed. Caption, family first, roots not rent. I didn't comment, I didn't react. Darren texted, let's talk soon. I let it sit unread. It's not that I had nothing to say. It's just that, for now, I didn't need to say it. The email from the building manager landed in my inbox at 8:42 a.m. Notice of enforcement. Final eviction delivery day 27. I didn't open it right away. I already knew what it said. 3 days to vacate, all signatures verified, all filings complete. The county didn't make mistakes when the paperwork was that clean. By noon, I was sipping coffee at my sister's when my phone started ringing. Mallory's name flashed across the screen. I let it go to voicemail, then another, then a third. On the 4th call, I answered. "This has to be a mistake!" she screamed before I could speak. "Some notice was taped to the door saying we have 3 days to leave. You need to call someone. Fix this." I rested the mug in my hand. "There's no mistake. The lease is terminated." "You can't do that," she said, her voice breaking into disbelief. "We live here." "You moved into someone else's house," I replied. "That was your mistake." For a moment there was silence, then the sound of muffled shouting in the background. Her mother. Maybe her father. Mallory snapped back, angrier now. "We'll sue you, Phoebe. You'll regret this." "You'll need to pay rent first," I said evenly. "You never did." Her breath caught. I imagined her standing in my hallway, phone shaking in her hand, eyes darting toward Darren. The same hallway she'd painted white, the one that never belonged to her. She started to speak, but I hung up. The quiet afterward felt heavier than satisfaction. It felt settled. I opened my laptop and scrolled through a furniture catalog until I found it. The same deep gray armchair Mallory had tossed in the donation pile last month, the one my husband used to sit in after work. I clicked purchase. Shipping address, my new condo. 3 days left, and they still didn't know I'd already moved on. The photo came from Janine, the neighbor 2 doors down. We'd never been close, but she'd always liked my garden roses. Her message was short. "Thought you'd want to see this." The image loaded slowly. Mallory, her parents, and Darren standing on my old balcony. They were all smiling, wine glasses raised. Mallory's mother was even wearing one of my old cardigans. The caption read, "Boston finally feels like home." I smiled. I forwarded it to my lawyer, who replied 2 minutes later with a thumbs up and a single line. "The listing went live this morning. Multiple inquiries already. We'll close fast." The condo I'd found was smaller, but it had better windows, and no one tried to repaint my walls. My new armchair arrived yesterday. It fit perfectly in the corner next to the bookshelf. The light hit just right in the morning. I kept Janine's photo, just in case. Darren called that night. No message, just a missed call. He didn't try again. I imagined him sitting in the guest room, because that's where Mallory had put him after she took over the master. I imagined the air thick with tension, her parents unpacking boxes they never asked permission to bring. They thought they'd won. The paperwork told a different story. By the time they heard the knock on the door from the buyer's inspector, I'd be walking into my second week at the new place. No warning, no fight, just a closing date. Let them decorate, let them post, let them believe. I already knew how it ended. By Wednesday, the calls stopped coming from Mallory and started coming from numbers I didn't recognize. Realtors, inspectors, the escrow officer, everyone confirming what I already knew. The sale was on track. 3 days until the new owners got the keys. 3 days until the locks were changed. Mallory must have finally read the notices because her tone shifted, first pleading, then accusing, then desperate again. Please, Phoebe, we'll figure something out. My parents sold their home for this. You can't just... I already did, I told her, and ended the call. I forwarded everything to my lawyer. He told me the inspection would happen Friday morning, the locksmith scheduled an hour after. No delays, no extensions. I made coffee and sat by the window of my condo. From here, the city hummed differently. Quieter, like it didn't care who was coming or going. I finished half the cup, then started gathering the rest of my paperwork into a single folder labeled Final. On Thursday, I drove by the old house. I told myself it was to drop off a form for the closing company, but I knew it was more than that. Mallory's parents were in the driveway unloading patio furniture from a rental truck. The mother was giving orders. The father was wiping sweat with a towel. They didn't see me. Darren did. He was standing near the garage, hands in his pockets, eyes fixed on the ground. I slowed the car, rolled the window down halfway. He looked up just long enough for our eyes to meet. I nodded once. He didn't nod back, just turned away, pretending to check something on his phone. I drove on. The house disappeared in the rearview mirror, white paint glaring under the afternoon sun. By the time I reached the next intersection, I could already picture what tomorrow would sound like. The knock at their door, the voices they wouldn't recognize, the quiet after. At 8:12 sharp, my phone started vibrating on the kitchen counter. I didn't need to look at the screen to know who it was. I let it ring once, twice, then picked up. Mallory's voice hit me before I could say hello. What the hell is this? There are people here saying we have to leave. They're changing the locks. I poured a second cup of coffee and set the mug down. You do, I said. You can't do this, she screamed. You're ruining us. I took a slow breath. No, you ruined yourselves when you tried to take what wasn't yours. There was a rustling sound, shouting, footsteps, a door slamming. I heard her father's voice in the background, angry, confused. We sold our house for this. You said it was handled. Mallory's sobs filled the silence that followed. You can't just leave us with nothing. I looked at the clock. The locksmith must have arrived early. You'll figure it out, I said quietly, then ended the call. 2 minutes later, Darren's name flashed on the screen. I didn't answer. It rang again and again, then stopped. I walked to the window. The morning light spilled across the countertop, touching the folder labeled Final. Everything inside it, every receipt, every signature, had already done the talking for me. Another voicemail came through. I deleted it without listening. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from the building manager. Inspection complete, locks changed, keys delivered. I set the phone down, wrapped both hands around my coffee mug, and let the quiet settle. The storm outside wasn't mine anymore. By noon, I knew the house would be empty. Echoes where their voices were, cardboard boxes half packed, a front door that no longer opened for them. I opened my laptop, typed my new address on an online order form, and scheduled grocery delivery for tomorrow morning. There was no reason to look back. The message came in while I was unpacking the last kitchen box. Just a text. No words, only a photo. Mallory sat on the porch steps, face red, hands clenched in her lap. Her mother stood nearby, cradling a potted plant like it was breakable. Her father was on the curb, slumped forward, elbows on his knees. Darren stood behind them, half-shadowed, hands shoved deep into his coat pockets. No one was talking. I stared at it for a moment, then saved the photo to my phone, just long enough to know I had it, and then I deleted it. Not because I wanted to forget, but because I didn't need proof. I was there. I lived it. My new place was quiet, smaller but not cramped. A walk-up on a tree-lined street in West Cambridge. The walls were still bare, the furniture sparse, but it was mine. I signed the lease. I chose the paint. I turned the key in the lock. The silence here felt earned. I boiled water for tea, sorted through the last file folder. Utilities, voter registration, deed transfer confirmation, every document now matched this new address. My phone rang again. Darren. For a second, I almost let it go to voicemail, but something stopped me. I answered. He didn't speak at first, just a breath. Then, I didn't know what to say. I said nothing. I should have done something, he said. I didn't stop it. I didn't defend you. I just stood there. I let that truth hang in the air. I wanted to fix it, he said, but I waited too long. Still, I said nothing. Then softly, I miss you. I closed my eyes. My tea kettle started to whistle behind me. I lowered the flame, lifted the kettle, and finally spoke. Do you want to talk? Yes, he said, if you'll let me. I set down the cup. He was quiet, waiting. So I gave him the chance he didn't give me. I'm listening. Darren didn't beg. He sat across from me in the cafe we chose together, someplace halfway between where I lived now and the life we used to share. He didn't fidget. He didn't defend. I was wrong, he said simply. I nodded. He stared into his coffee. Do you think you'll ever come back? No, I answered. He nodded too. No anger, no surprise. That's when I said, but you can come to dinner. The words landed softer than I expected. He looked up. Really? It's just dinner. He arrived that Sunday with a paper bag of groceries. He cooked. It was a little oversalted, but he tried. He didn't linger, didn't ask for a tour, didn't bring up the house. When we were done, he cleared the table without being asked, washed every dish, dried them, and put them back in the right place. I noticed, but I didn't say anything. He walked to the door and slipped on his jacket. I'm glad you invited me, he said. I'm glad you came. He opened the door. I followed him to the threshold. He didn't look back. He walked slowly toward his car parked down the block. I closed the door. The lock clicked into place. Quiet. Final. This one locked from the inside. And this time I was the only one with the key. Phoebe's story wasn't about revenge. It was about return. Return to her own boundaries, her own choices, her own peace. When the world she'd built was stripped from her, by family, by assumption, by silence, she'd done what most people never do. She didn't fight to stay where she was unwelcome. She stood, gathered what was hers, and began again. The house, the walls, the furniture, all of that had been temporary, though she hadn't realized it at the time. What remained was ownership, not of property, but of self. Weeks passed quietly. The new condo filled with light each morning. She hung a single picture frame on the wall, the photo of Darren at his college graduation, smiling in the cap and gown, the same one that had once been turned face down in her old bedroom. One afternoon, she received an envelope in the mail. The return address was handwritten, Colleen's. Inside was a small card, cream-colored, with neat cursive letters. You did what you had to do. Proud of you. Underneath it, a folded piece of paper, an article clipped from the Boston Home Register. It was a real estate listing. Her old house sold above asking. She smiled, not because of the money, but because of the finality. It was done. The memories could stay where they belonged, in the past. That evening, she brewed chamomile tea and sat by her window. The street below was quiet, only the soft sound of tires on damp pavement. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked twice, then stopped. She thought of Darren. Not the son who had betrayed her trust, but the boy who used to sit on that old gray armchair beside his father, eyes wide as they watched the Red Sox on TV. The boy who used to bring her coffee in a chipped mug on Mother's Day. He was still in there somewhere. People don't lose their goodness. Sometimes they just let someone else borrow it too long. The next morning, her phone buzzed with a new message. A photo. Darren standing in front of a small moving truck, boxes stacked neatly behind him. His caption read, "Starting over. Thanks for dinner, Mom." She smiled, small, private, and typed back 2 words. Proud to. Then she set the phone down, turned toward the window, and let the morning light fill the room. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she had to hold her breath in her own home. This silence wasn't absence. It was peace.